Hi everyone! For anonymity, I'll be using fake names for this post. My wife Kara and I were married for 3 years, and we were two love peas in a pod. When Kara and I first met, I didn't think I would spend my life with another woman apart from her. I had this certainty about her, and from the first sight, I knew she was the one for me. Also, the increase in my heartbeat confirmed that as I approached her to speak to her. The first time I saw Kara was at a distant friend's birthday, which I was dragged to attend by another friend. She was sitting with a group of friends, and they were all chatting loudly and drinking. It was a late-night party, and there was so much to drink, but I didn't drink more than a glass because I wanted to be in the right state of mind for work the following day. The thing is, I used to be a timid person, and approaching gorgeous ladies like Kara was a big deal for me. My friend, who dragged me to the party, noticed that I could not take my eyes off her since we arrived there. Without asking if I wanted to, he ordered the waiter to send her an expensive bottle of champagne and tell her it was from me. After it was delivered, I noticed that all her friends at her table turned in my direction, and they all smiled simultaneously. Then she smiled, raised her glass, and mouthed "thank you." Almost immediately, my friend pulled me from the chair I sat on and asked me to go and say hi to her. He knew I had been single for more than 4 years and wanted me to maximize my once-in-a-blue-moon pull of attraction I felt. He knew I wouldn't like the idea, but he kept insisting. After persuading and trying to convince me for nearly 15 minutes, I summoned the courage, walked to her table, and asked if we could talk privately. Her friends excused her, and we sat at a different table. We didn't say a lot that night because I was stunned by her beauty, and to be honest, it had been years since I talked to a woman about something that wasn't work-related. I worked as a programmer at a prominent tech firm in our city and considered anything other than work a waste of my time. We introduced ourselves to each other, and I found out she was currently doing her PhD. Even without saying so much, I'm sure my constant blushes and ear-to-ear grin had given me away that night. When we delved into her work life, I discovered she worked part-time as a junior writer/editor at a publishing company, and I believed her because she sounded intelligent and there was something about the way she spoke. After our little chit-chat that night, we exchanged contacts, and I left the party because I had to rest for a few hours before going to work the following morning. We had our first official date about a week later because I was caught in the web of deadlines, and she claimed she was busy too. Our first date was more fun than the night we met. We talked about so many things, and I loved that she was very free-spirited. She smiled and laughed wholeheartedly, and it was evident that she enjoyed our conversation and our time together. After our first date, we hung out more often and visited each other's apartments. Before we started dating, she would come over to my place on weekends, and we would try cooking a meal together from a cookbook, baking pastries with strange names, or we would just do something fun. As weeks passed, we got closer to each other, and I could not go to bed without thinking about her every night. I saw all the signs that convinced me she was the one for me, and I kept imagining what it would feel like to spend the rest of my life with Kara. As friends, I took her shopping and got her flowers and the things I knew she loved. I knew she loved me too, and I also knew she wanted me to ask her out. Her body language said it all, and eventually, I did, and she said yes. For me, money was not a problem. I was well paid, and most importantly, I loved to spoil Kara because it made me happy. We ended up dating for only 13 months, and we got married. We had a beautiful beachside wedding. Kara wanted that since childhood, and I was happy to do that. The wedding was small because we wanted to use part of the money for our vacation, and we did that. The first 2 years of our marriage were heaven on earth. Kara and I were much more in love with each other than when we were dating. Our bond grew stronger, and we literally did everything together. In fact, I only had breakfast, lunch, or dinner if I had it with Kara. We would eat together in the morning before she left for work, lunch would be at a restaurant close to her office, and we always had dinner together when she returned home, even when she had to spend extra time in the office. I always waited for her to come home so we could eat together. Aside from eating together, We had the rule of going to bed early so we could bond, get intimate, and talk about random things before sleeping off. Already in our first year of marriage, I had been promoted to a senior programmer in the firm I worked for, and my work became 100% remote unless I chose to go to the office. Kara was also done with her PhD and now working full-time as a writer/editor in her publishing company, which also came with an increased workload. Unfortunately, a year after Kara started working as a full-time editor for the publishing company, she got laid off. The company was cutting down on staff, and Kara also had to go. This was in the third year of our marriage, which changed many things between us. Being sacked took its mental toll on her, and she slowly became depressed. We no longer talked like we used to or did our usual weekend cooking tradition. She became a shadow of herself, and it hurt me to see her that way. I even offered to double what she was paid at the publishing company, hoping it would brighten up her mood or cheer her up, but it didn't. She told me she wasn't working there because of the money, but because it was always her dream to work as an editor in that particular organization. Despite shuffling our house and her parents' house, Kara was still not herself, and I was becoming more concerned. It wasn't until a friend of mine recommended that she talk to a therapist, and that was when we began to see changes. Slowly, she became more active and the vibrant, cheerful woman I used to know. She met with her therapist 3 times a week, and I even insisted that she made it 4 times a week because I was impressed with the results I saw. I wanted her to be fully back to how she used to be so bad that I didn't notice something else happening between her and the therapist. I was cleaning the house to surprise her the day I found out she had gone to her parents' house the previous day, and I didn't want her to come home and clean. I even went grocery shopping to make her favorite meal and got scented candles to make her dinner special. I cooked first so I could clean up at once. I was in a room cleaning and folding clothes in the wardrobe when my hands touched a small journal that was partly tucked under a pile of clothes. I pulled the journal and realized it was from her therapist because it had the company's insignia on it. I know I should not have read it, but I was curious about what she had been journaling. To my greatest surprise, I found out Kara and her therapist were having an affair, and she journaled every bit of it. I was speechless and heartbroken. I went through the journal again to be sure of what I had read, and the content didn't change. Kara was cheating on me, and she was unapologetic about it. She even wrote about how her therapist was better in bed than me. I've got to admit I was hurt and cried like a baby that day. Everything I planned for us was ruined. I laid on our bed for hours, and when it dawned on me that what had been done, I wanted them to pay for hurting me. I took pictures of the journal and filed a complaint with the therapist's office. I even took the journal with me in case they had doubts, and they were disappointed when they read it. When Kara came home that day, I told her I dropped by the therapist's office, and she was surprised. When she asked why I did, I dropped the journal on the table, and she began to cry. Immediately, she started begging me, but there was no way I would listen. Reading her journal broke my heart, and I could not forget all I had read. I kicked her out of the house and threw her stuff on the porch. She was so embarrassed and could not move, so I called her parents and asked them to come and get her off my property. In addition, I mailed the photocopy pages of the journal to Kara's grandmother, who was very fond of me, and she was taken out of her grandmother's will. Her parents begged me not to tell her grandmother, but that was my ultimate revenge plan. Ultimately, we got divorced, and her therapist had his license revoked. It was good that we didn't have kids yet, so it was easier for me to move on with my life. Kara became depressed and more miserable after the divorce, and I am glad she had to live with her parents' disappointment and shame. She called the house several times to beg me to take her back, but I wanted nothing to do with her. The last time Kara came, she met another woman and attacked her. I was so mad that I called the cops on her, and after that, I filed for a restraining order, and that was the last time I saw her. As for the woman she saw, we broke up because I was still hurting and had not completely moved on, but I'm glad I'm making progress. My conclusion and advice to this story. I'm truly sorry to hear about the painful experience you went through. It's evident that you've been hurt deeply, and navigating such emotional turmoil is never easy. Here are a few pieces of advice for your healing journey. Seek professional support. Consider talking to a therapist or counselor to help process the emotional aftermath of your divorce. They can provide a neutral perspective and coping strategies to navigate the complex emotions you're experiencing. Give yourself time. Healing from a betrayal like this takes time, and it's crucial to allow yourself the space and time to grieve, reflect, and eventually move forward. Don't rush the healing process. Give yourself the patience you deserve. Focus on self-care. Take care of your physical and mental well-being. Engage in activities that bring you joy, relaxation, and fulfillment. Exercise, hobbies, and spending time with supportive friends and family can contribute to your overall well-being. Learn from the experience. Reflect on the lessons you can take from this experience. Understand what red flags or signs you might have overlooked and how you can apply this knowledge to future relationships. Growth often comes from adversity. Forgiveness for yourself. Forgiveness doesn't mean condoning the actions of others, but it can be a powerful tool for your own healing. Forgive yourself for any perceived shortcomings and mistakes. Holding on to guilt or self-blame may hinder your progress. Open communication. If you find it beneficial, consider talking to trusted friends or family about your feelings. Open communication can provide support, different perspectives, and a sense of connection during tough times. Set boundaries. It's essential to establish clear boundaries with your ex-spouse and anyone else involved. This includes emotional boundaries to protect yourself from further pain and turmoil. Consider future relationships with caution. As you move forward, approach new relationships with caution and ensure you've healed sufficiently. Take the time to get to know someone before fully investing emotionally. Remember, everyone's healing journey is unique, and there's no one-size-fits-all solution. If you ever feel overwhelmed or unable to cope, seeking professional help is a courageous and wise step. It's commendable that you're making progress, and with time and self-care, you can rebuild and find happiness again.